Hold on. Hello? Can you hear me now? You can. Hello, everybody. My name is Android Usagi. I'm a friendly neighborhood superhero, and welcome to our first live episode of Comic Book Club. We're really excited to be here. In the club right now, I'm hoping more people will join us later. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves? We'll start with a familiar face to the chat, Grant. It might be Grant. We're not sure.
Mm-hmm.
And a new face. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone watching, I guess. I'm Joey Fan, and as my profile picture suggests, I'm a big fan of Joey from the Animal Crossing series, so I decided to take the namesake for myself, and I'm just tagging along here.
Yeah. So we're here.
For sure.
We're here because we like comic books. That's it. That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. That's our sole purpose, and no one can tell us otherwise.
It's
we
true.
just like comic books.
We just like comic books. So as you can see on my screen, we did have a book of the month. The way that this comic book club works is I pick a graphic novel for us to read. It's usually just a one and done graphic novel.
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's fine. You know how Butch is.
I know. I got you.
We usually pick one graphic novel to read a month, and then in the first week of the next month, we'll get together and talk about it. So this month's book was Sentient by Jeff Lemire, who is a really cool dude.
Very cool.
Yeah, he's written a lot, actually. Let me go ahead and talk a little bit about him. I'm also giving y'all a heads up. This may be my throat is very sore. So I might be speaking a little quieter. I'll try to keep it up though. So Jeff Lemire is a Canadian comic book writer, artist, and television producer. He has written like so many comic books. Notable works include Sweet Tooth, Essex County Trilogy, Green Arrow, Animal Man, Black Hammer, Gideon Falls, and Descender, amongst so many others. This man has written for Marvel, DC, DC's Vertigo line. He's won Eisner and Harvey Awards.
I'm busy. Tell her I'm on call. I can't. What is she doing?
You need to help her lower her stuff. Yeah.
Sorry, guys. So he's won a lot of awards for his writing, and his work in comic books. Hi, Abs! Abs is also a member of the book club. She had a...
Hey, give me just a second. I'm sorry here.
Oh,
I didn't mean
good.
to cut you off, but
No,
I'll be
you're
right
good.
back.
All good. Abs is also a member of the book club. Yay! Join us. Join us. One of us. One of us. Abs!
Hello.
Oh! Welcome to the club. Welcome to the club.
Thank you for your welcome.
You're always welcome. So, heads up. Grant hasn't read the book of the month.
Shame.
Oh, you didn't?
Hmm?
You didn't get a chance to read
No,
this
I
one?
said shame.
Oh,
I said shame. I read it. I loved it.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
Hi. All good. This is Abster. She is a friend of mine. She's a friendly water dragon, and also read the book this month.
Hello.
Yes, very cool.
So
Alright.
let me make y'all a little bigger on my screen so everybody can see you. We were just talking about Jeff Lemire and how he has been a very prolific writer in comic books, and he's won a lot of awards for his work.
Mm-hmm. He sure has. Man, I've seen his track record.
Like a
How much
lot.
have you, outside of Sentient, how much have you read anything else by him?
Personally, I have. I actually have a Sweet Tooth compendium I've been working my way through slowly.
Very cool.
I really loved his Animal Man run, and Black Hammer is some of my favorite comics ever.
Yes.
I do want to ask Abs, because Abs is new to comics. Abs, what kind of comic books have you read before this?
I think I read a Batman one once. I've read very little.
That's-
I've read very little. The most I read is manga or graphic novels.
Manga, so those do count. Those are comic books.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what kind
I
of...
forgot what manga I've read.
Oh, it's okay. Do you know, like, what kind of genre you tend to read? Was this, like...
Fantasy.
Okay, so this was kind of outside of your norm, then.
Yeah. I like sort of like horror themed stuff, and I like horror in general, but I haven't read a lot of comics to do with horror.
Oh, cool.
So yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into the book soon. I will say Jeff Lemire writes a lot of horror. So if you liked this one, I have some recommendations for you. But let's get into the book, yeah? Grant, what kind of comics do you read? Hold on. Do you read comics? Do you read books? What's your reading history?
I've read All You Need Is Kill.
I haven't read that one.
Wait, he can talk?
Oh wait, hold on. Yeah.
Okay, no. I was thinking, no, you don't need to respond that way. I was just making a joke. Offhand comment. I'm sorry. I would like to hear it in non-work talk. I think.
I was reading Commissar Yarick's books, but didn't get very far. I read of course, the Mistborn trilogy I did. I have the manga edition of the first chunk of Gurren Lagann. I have some Halo books here on my shelf. And I have an affinity for giant dungeons. So also the Thrawn trilogy. A lot of my shit's sci-fi.
Okay, so I will say this then. I am a little sad that you didn't get to read this, because you would have loved it.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is right at home for you if you like sci-fi.
I'm looking at the art for All You Need Is Kill. Because I've never read this. We might have to add this to the book. Or to the book club list. But it looks cool, and it looks very similar in style to this. I also do want to take a second before we get into this to talk about Gabriel Walta, who's the artist on here. So for comic book fans, you'll recognize his work from Hellboy, the recent Hellboy BPRD. He's done some work for Jeff in the past in some of the Black Hammer stuff. He did a very famous Vision story that I want to cover in Comic Book Club at some point. He did Phantom Road. He's done some Magneto work. He worked on Haha back in 2021. Yeah, this man, his career is almost as extensive as Jeff Lemire's. It's all over the place. He's done Marvel, DC. He did the artwork for Neil Gaiman's Norse Mythology Volume 2.
Oh, okay.
So he's
quite the track record then, yeah.
Right.
I was about to say, I don't think I had read anything with this guy's art in it before today, but if that's true, I got to look back through my BPRD books, because I probably just forgot about him.
It's specifically Old Man Whittier.
Oh, okay. All right, it's a specific story. Gotcha.
Yep. That's the one that I see here. He has been nominated for the GLAAD Media Award for Outstanding Comic Book and the Hugo Award for Best Graphic Story or Comic. So,
Ooh.
so
Very
two,
cool.
two very, very talented deans on this book. Let's get into it. Who wants to kick us off? What were your thoughts of the whole book?
Okay, I can. I thought it was an excellent book, much like our last time doing the Supergirl.
Mhm.
This was a spectacular story. I like that it wasn't super word dense, but it still got its point across very easily, and it was just like I breezed through it. Like this is one of those books you can read in one sitting, and you're probably gonna want to because it's just like so captivating that I was like, I know there's chapters that I can stop at, but I don't want to stop, and I just read it all the way through. What to talk about? I mean, if we're usually I like to highlight art first, so if I can be so bluntly as to start, the art in this book was absolutely exceptional, and I like that the colorist has this like very, I guess like it meshes very well with the artist, and because they use this washed color, it gives it this very like eerie, like Lost in Space vibe thing, which is exactly what the story is about. Is these kids
Oh,
something
dude.
very unfortunate happens at the beginning of the book, and they're basically stranded on this ship by themselves with just the AI that's supposed to be watching over them. And they have like to survive for a year to get through this, I guess, black zone where they can't make contact with any outside aircraft, society, or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And because these colors are so washed out, and the art by Walta just resonates so well with the story, I think that it makes for a very, very good read. Like I'm 100% putting it out there. This is probably like a 9 or 10 out of 10 book for me, and that's on art alone. That's not even getting into the story yet.
I would like to say that this is kind of uncommon for comic books because of how the production is done. Usually, comic books are produced very quickly. They have a quick time schedule, so you will have a different person coloring it than you will have drawing it.
Sure.
Because they want the person to just draw the pages as fast as possible. This is an exception. Gabriel Walta did all of the art. He did the lines, the coloring, the inking, everything.
And that would be why it looks so good then.
That would be why it's
I
so
was like, if the
cohesive.
colorist is different, then they're like in cohesion together. They're like of one
Yeah.
mind. Literally, they are of one mind. It's all Gabriel Walta.
It's all Gabriel Walta. Abs, what did you think of this book? Like, what's your initial thoughts? Just
So, first of all, I agree with Joey 100% on everything said. But for me, if we're talking about it as a whole, I struggle a lot now to get tense when reading something. Usually, like in video games and stuff, I can get tense when situations are tense. But when it comes to reading, I don't tend to be like on the edge of my seat as much as I used to. This book put me on the edge of my seat multiple times. Like, and the art style's gorgeous. The story is so interesting. The characters are really interesting, and it's just yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, well said, well said. I actually
Thank
agree.
you.
This is a very edge of your seat, especially during a certain. There's definitely times in this book where you're definitely on the edge of your seat because again, the people at stake here are mostly children.
Yeah.
So if you have any compassion at all for kids, which I hope most people do, it's kind of like rough because these kids are not like the problems that they have to face in the story aren't like, oh, the square peg doesn't fit in the round peg, you know? Like this is
Yeah.
life or death moments. This is AI. This is competing political forces. It's just a ton, and it's. I guess the book does a great job of showing us that kids they don't really understand the opposing politics or whatever.
Yeah.
They're still growing up. They're still maturing. So the AI of the ship Val is not necessarily a narrator, but it's like our like moral
Explainer.
compass, I suppose. Yes,
Our
yes.
window.
Explainer and from exactly. As
Um,
she tries to manage these kids.
And can I
So, yeah.
also add that
Mhm.
there's a massive thing about trying to overcome grief and other emotions without having anyone to help walk you through said grief and emotions, and
Yeah.
you can tell that they are going through so much with their kids, and they don't know how to articulate how they're feeling. They don't know how to handle how they're feeling, so they lash out, because kids do. When kids are upset and they don't know how to handle it, they will lash out on people, and it's very unhealthy. But it's like,
That's the only way.
and it's one of those, you're infuriated because it's like, no, don't lash out. There is a way around this, but you sympathize with them because they don't know the way around it, because they don't have anyone to help them through that. Because the AI learns just as much as they do. She's learning to try and look after them, keep them alive, but that is her sole purpose. Her sole purpose is to keep them alive. Mental welfare, while important, wasn't at the top of the list. Just keeping them alive in general was the main thing. So it's one of those, they learn together sort of thing, and through that they overcome struggles. And
Yeah.
and
That's an
Very
excellent.
good observation.
I'm amazed I'm articulate. It's almost 2 a.m. and I've been streaming non-stop for 9 hours.
Goodness gracious. You're doing amazing. I do want to take this moment to kind of springboard off that and discuss the different kind of characters. Because this book, and I will warn Grant, there's going to be some spoilers from here on out. Like some major spoilers. This book focuses on, in the very beginning, they introduce you to family dynamics and adults and their children and how they all work together within the ship. And it gives you this impression of like, oh, we're going to be focusing on this. And then they introduce this political struggle, and then all the adults are dead because the political struggle is going to wipe out everyone on this ship. And one adult is like, I'm going to literally unlock the sentience for the AI right now so that she can protect the children. So you, not only are we seeing the children grow and change from their grief and their trauma, you're also seeing this basically newborn artificial intelligence learn what it means to make decisions through them. Like, they're all learning and growing together and learning kind of it's almost what does it mean to be human and work in a society, in a system, and kind of raise yourself.
Gotcha, yeah. To add to that, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you had ended your comment, but the AI also, like, I guess not just understand humanity, but how to be a caretaker for the kids is, I think, the main premise of the book. Is because AI alone, like at the start of the novel, the AI is good for, hey, open this door, hey, do this, or open this airlock, close the vents, whatever. As soon as these, at the end of that traumatic event where pretty much every parent, not pretty much, every parent aboard is killed, or every adult upon that ship gets locked in that conflict. As soon as, I guess, the floodgates are open and the AI is allowed to take pretty much full control of the ship, it's not just like newborn, like trying to figure out what I can do on the ship, what I have to do, but also because her main objective is to take care of the kids and make sure they're alive. There's a big transition from the start of the book and how she deals with kids there to the end of the book. And I guess AI doesn't really have consciousness, right? And we can talk about this further later, but or not. Well, I guess AI does. AI at the moment does not. Sorry, I was talking about in current terms. So
you're fine.
When we're given like an AI in a book that does have consciousness, which here it does, it's odd to see it like learn that way. And throughout the course of the novel, this quickly it becomes, from the start of the novel, just a door opener, to the end of the novel, like a parent, that cares for their kids, especially with that final conflict with the other AI and the separatists, which I'm not sure we can get into later, right? When we talk more about the plot. Yeah,
absolutely. Um, ba-ba-ba. Sorry, I almost forgot. We are sponsored today.
Ooh.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I'm updating my overlay real quick. Um, so Collected Comics and Games in the Dallas-Fort Worth area is actually the comic book shop that I work for. So let me go ahead and update my overlay. And my boss has offered anybody that buys our book for the month from us specifically will be offered a 10% discount. And so you can't go back and buy the book from the last month for that, but if you do let me know, like, hey, I'm putting an order in at your store, I can make sure that you get the 10% discount for our next month's book, which will be Motor Girl by Terry Moore. So we are sponsored a little bit. I'm very excited about it. If you want to know more, I believe the website is collectedcomics.com. Hold on. I'm gonna have to find out. Hold on.
You're
good.
Take your time.
Yeah, I'll post. It's saying it's not secured. Okay.
Oh.
I'm gonna have to talk to Ron about that one. So I'm gonna go ahead and post a link in the chat right now. This will take you to our store page. Make sure to just click Fort Worth and then shoot me a message and let me know that you are ordering from us. If we don't have a book in stock, just let me know. I'm happy to help you out. Okay, now you can get back to the book. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the characters. Was there, like, in the beginning of the book, was there a character that, like, really stood out to you?
Yes. For me personally, sorry, I'm gonna lead off. Alex, who is Lily's mom, the kind of like the not as uptight parent, you remember.
Yeah.
The one that ends up making the call for Val, the AI, to kill Kruger, which was the last parent aboard the ship. She really stood out to me because at first, like the first time I read this a long time ago, because this is my second time reading this book. This is like a refresher course for me. The first time I thought she was like a protagonist figure, and it really stood out to me. This time when I read it, I realized that I don't think there's like a morally perfect parent here.
Mm-hmm.
And I can, if you want me to expound more on what I think now, I can. It's just you asked which character stood out to me, so I'm gonna say Alex right away.
I do want to see why. Like,
okay,
why did that character stand out to you so much?
Right now?
Yeah.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, so like I said, this was my second time through. And I thought that Alex, the fact that she's very headstrong, I guess it was like a spur of the moment kind of deal. What's happening is, it ends. This is major spoilers here for my orc friend. I already forgot the name of. I'm sorry.
Grant.
I'm
Was it
Grant.
Grant?
Yeah.
Grant. Okay, good. All right. Major spoilers here. So the political controversy at the start of the book is everyone aboard the ship. Well, the parents, because the kids aren't. They're getting taught. They're still kids. They don't really know. The political controversy here is that all these, I guess, pilgrims that are leaving Earth, which is doomed at this point, they're trying to go to a new Earth colony. They're hearing about separatist movements where there's kind of a civil fighting at the new colony they're going to. And pretty much everyone aboard the ship is with the Earth colony. Well, what happens is one of the children's moms, her name is Kruger, she ends up being a secret, well, I guess separatist.
Yeah.
And she was among them, and I guess, because the separatists are so radical, they're pretty much terrorists. Her philosophy is just basically kill all Earth colonists. Like, there's no point of negotiation. It's better if we just kill pretty much everything, and I guess their way of doing it would be to kill all the parents, and that's what she did. Is she basically rigged the airlock systems so that this, should I say, some like a poisonous gas overtakes, and all the parents are pretty much dead. At this point, Kruger is going to the children, and Alex, which is Lily's mom, the more carefree one, she makes a last-ditch effort to try to protect these children that she believes are going to die. So she unlocks the AI's all the safe gates, everything that was holding it back, and commands the AI to kill this last parent. And so when I was reading the story, I was thinking about this, and I like Jeff Lemire's, I guess, interpretation of headstrong passion, where in the moment, she is thinking about the children, but it's not very clear if she's making the right choice. And when I thought about it on the second read through, I don't think she is necessarily. Sometimes when people like make rash decisions with good intentions, you see Alex, like I said, calling Val to kill Kruger, not knowing if the children are going to be properly cared for her death.
Right.
Well,
and I think
go ahead.
I do want to say, my reading of this, I think she was gonna kill the kids. Like, the impression that I got from Kruger was that she was getting the adults. She was gonna keep her kid alive, and then I'm sorry, I keep looking downstream. I'm double checking myself. But the reading that I got from this, and they don't openly state this, so I hadn't considered that she was going to raise them herself.
Sure.
But the reading I got was that she was going to kill the kids, just in a bit of a more humane way than she did the adults.
Right.
So different, we both got different readings from that. It's cool.
Yes. Yeah. Now that I'm looking back at the page, I can definitely see why you would think that.
It's just the way the art...
Isaac here away from them. It is a little bit more up in the air as to what you believe she's going to do next. And I think that split-second decision where Alex decides, it doesn't matter, I don't really want to know either way, I'm just going to protect the children. Like I said, it's very headstrong without thinking it all the way through. How I interpret it was that Kruger wasn't planning on killing those kids. And Val jumped the gun, I guess. Kind of leaving the kids, I guess, not necessarily... didn't think it all the way through, I guess, because she is like the last living parent alive. So I think the real moral dilemma, and I can kind of see where you're coming from. The moral dilemma is, would it have been better to have someone with this opposing mindset, one of the separatists, have these kids and raise them, instead of just having them all dead and not having the separatists have their way with the children?
Yeah.
So I...
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say, can I chime in? Because
of course.
This is a very interesting discussion. Because, again, sorry, I completely understand your side of it. And I will say that I also read it as she was going to look after the kids and raise them under their own beliefs, the whole
separatist
political
stuff.
Side. But, and admittedly, this point will sort of add spoilers for what happens later on in the comic. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So, spoilers. Later on in the comic, the more separatists board the ship. And they start off by telling the kids that it's okay, we're not going to hurt you, that sort of thing. But then the minute the kids sort of start fighting back and basically turn around and say, fuck you, they do say, I'm fairly sure at one point they say that they're just going to kill the kids or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's one of those... I think she entirely intended to look after them. I think that was the intention. I think that was the aim, because then it's more people to their cause. But I have a feeling also if any of them bit back in any sort of way, they may not have survived. So just my take into the discussion, because I still stand by. I think she did want to look after, especially her own kid. But I do feel like if any of them became a problem, they would have just been gotten rid of.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that note, the kids are kind of left to a Lord of the Flies situation, aren't they?
Yep.
Like they are in charge of everything. Val does her best, but she's like, I have to teach you guys how to fix me because I'm not going to run forever on my own. And I think that's where we kind of get into the meat of the story. Like the parents die and you're like, oh shoot, now we're going to have to figure out, how to live. And unlike Lord of the Flies, they do have kind of somebody trying to teach them, they do have a more mature figure. And then, like, you get to see them kind of learning what their jobs are. There's a moment that stood out to me that I had forgotten from my first read through. But we've talked a lot about how there's a constant question of life or death for these kids. And there's that moment where Val just takes the initiative to go help the crazy man isolated in his space station. And it's like a blip. I'm looking at this and it's before they meet the other separatists, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like there's a 9-page spread, right? And then they're like back to normal life. Val hasn't come back, and then she meets the crazy man. And everything goes downhill from there. Did you guys was that also a standout for y'all, or was it?
I'll be perfectly honest. I was expecting her to die.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because there's also one. Where is it? Because there's a line that says, "And the day we lost Lil was the worst day of my life." So my immediate thought was, "Oh shit, she's gonna die on this station." That was my immediate thought, and I was like, "I don't know if I want to see a kid die. I don't know how I feel about this." I was very much on edge the entire chapter, especially when the guy starts actually physically attacking her.
Yeah, that was really scary.
It was fairly distressing because I didn't know how to feel. I was really torn up, and then spoilers, they made it back safely. But after that I was like, that was fun.
About that scene, so I wouldn't say it was necessarily a standout on its own for me.
Okay.
What it did for me on my second read through is it confirmed one thing. The first thing that it confirmed for me was actually this parallel I saw between Lily and her mom Alex. If I were to take my interpretation and say Alex would do whatever it takes at all costs to protect the children, even if it means a short-term killing of the last parent alive that could possibly take care of them. The same thing kind of paralleled here, where if you believe that was a headstrong motion, like I did, something out of passion, and wasn't really thought through, we can see that because Lily was raised by her, I guess she has that same mindset. And especially after the trauma of seeing her mom die, and how we've said earlier, these kids don't really know how to process those emotions, and they're kind of lashing out at everything. When they make Isaac the scapegoat, and Lily is like, I want nothing to do with him, and you know what? If someone needs help, I'm going to go do it. It's a very nice, I guess, like, a very altruistic thing to do is to go help someone regardless of the costs.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're thinking about it like rationally, it's in that same boat where she might be putting the ship at jeopardy because all the other kids aboard, even Val, tell her, "Hey, don't go. We need to stay here. I'm just going to refuel, and we're leaving the station. We're not going to investigate the SOS because my main objective is to get you to the new Earth colony." Lily says no, and she pretty much jeopardizes. Like, what if it was a fake distress call? What if it was a trap by separatists? She's not really thinking about it rationally, I guess, because like the point of the book is a lot of emotions come into play,
Mm-hmm.
and how Jeff Lemire wants to, I guess, make readers aware of that. Okay, through different kinds of characters, the kids, through Val, through Lily, our, I guess, protagonist of the book. So when she leaves the station, that's my first, I guess, not necessarily a standout moment, but it showed me that parallel where it's like mother, like daughter,
Mm-hmm.
where they're willing to do something headstrong like that. And the second reason that I thought this scene was important, although not necessarily like a standout, something I'll remember from this story, was actually the fleeting comments that the crazed man made about Victor. He's like, did Victor come back? When he's going nuts, and he's like, he believes that child, Lily, is a spy that was sent by the AI, which is nuts. I thought it was a nice nice case of foreshadowing, where we do see Victor later on in the story, this AI that's been taken over by the separatists and the ship. So it was sort of like a gateway, although I wouldn't say it was like, this is the main thing that I'm taking away from this story is, the crazed man going after Lily after he thinks that, what's it called, she was a spy. But I do think it's a very important scene.
I think that the reason it stood out to me so much isn't necessarily that I was like, oh God, she's gonna die. For me, it was, one, how much this AI seemed to genuinely care. And I don't know if that's like me projecting, or if the AI like learned to love, like the AI genuinely cared, whether it was like fulfilling its protocols or what have you.
Right.
And it was so, it hammered home the point. Like, up until this point, yes, we've seen the adults die, but you kind of get this idea that maybe the kids have plot armor, maybe the kids are going to be okay because they're just kids. And then you meet this crazy man who's like, oh, I'm gonna kill you because you're a spy. And like, you have this like, gosh, what was that? There's like 2 pages where you're just sitting with Val and Lil immediately after all of this violence and run and don't look back and no. And there's just 2 pages where you sit and you're like, are we okay? Is this okay? Is everybody alive? And then immediately you turn the page and you're like, oh, there's another ship coming. And we just saw what other people do.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think that's why that specific scene stood out.
Okay. Absolutely, and you're entitled to that. I mean, that's a great way of putting it. I do agree. That is a nice segue to see that kind of uncertain moment where everything's up in the air, and we actually aren't really sure if Lil is going to make it out okay of that situation. And I also do think that scene is a nice, not necessarily redeeming quality for Isaac, redeeming moment for Isaac, because he never really did anything wrong. He's kind of just the scapegoat in the story that everyone's like, hey, your mom was a traitor, and we're gonna blame you for the fact that she killed all her parents.
Right.
And because Isaac was ostracized, I guess this was, like I said, he'd never really done anything wrong, so he wasn't necessarily needing to redeem himself.
Mhm.
But it was a good way to. Sorry, my dogs are howling again. Give me a second, guys.
We love
But
we
anyway,
love
Isaac,
dogs.
We do.
Isaac,
We love the wolf.
the fact that he takes the initiative to try to change those opinions, and he leaves the ship because he feels that Lil is in trouble. It is a nice turning point for him as a character. We get to like him more. Yeah,
agree.
like I said, I'll be right back. Give me a second, guys.
Oh, good. Abs, was there a moment that really stood out for you in this book?
Mia, come in.
There's a moment that scared the fuck out of me.
Oh gosh,
And it
what
was-
was it?
It was when Lil first ran into the guy in the station. And for a moment, with the way the art style looked, it looked like the guy was almost like infected or corrupted or something. I was like, oh, please don't say there's now a fucking space virus on top of everything else. But no, it was just the art style. It just creeped me out.
Honestly, I wouldn't have been surprised if they did like the whole anime, like that fisheye lens zoom in on his face, like with the twitching and everything.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Hopefully that was my last distraction for the night.
You're fine. Abs was just telling us about a moment that really, really scared her.
And what would that be?
When Lil first ran into the guy on the station, and it's just the page, just before chapter 4, where it's just a shot of him, and then it zooms into his face, but it looks like he's on the floor around him. There's a bunch of black dots, and it almost looks like he's infected with something or corrupted with something. And for a moment, I was like, "Oh God, don't tell me he's like a zombie or some shit." And there's like space virus on top of everything else. And then it was almost a bit scarier because no, this isn't a virus. This is just a man who's essentially lost his mind and is now going to take it out on the only other human near him, which is a child.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, on that first read through, I totally agree with you. That scene, right, because the chapter ends right after.
Yeah.
He's just standing there. He's like, shh, don't say anything. He'll hear you, and if he hears you, he'll kill us all. I was like, what the? Is this going to be Dead Space with kids?
Right.
Like, that was literally my first
I was almost
reaction.
going to
I was
expect
oh
like
my
fucking
God.
xenomorph to appear or some shit, and it's like, no, you can't be too loud. There's aliens there.
Yeah. Right.
No, humans were the real horror all along, or something.
It does
Is
leave.
there always?
Or is there what?
You said as always, I think.
Oh yeah.
I said as they are always to the
It's-
comment that
yeah.
it's humans again. That's the problem.
Oh, is it humans again? Freaking again?
Oh,
The
actually,
call
also,
was coming from inside the house.
Oh,
I'm
thank
gonna-
you, Darth Nightwing, for shouting out Abster. Y'all make sure to follow Abster. I'm also gonna shout out Grant.
I'm also actually going to say, because there was another bit that actually made me yell out loud, and I was on holiday while I was reading this, so I was in the motorhome with my dad, and I yelled, and he looked at me like I'd grown another head. And it was when the other ship appears, and the ship says, "Hello, Valerie. My name is Victor. I have come to save you." And I'm like, no, fuck off.
right after that whole thing.
Yeah. Like, okay, yeah, so sure, that guy was very much not very well. He's been isolated for a long time, but he said one name that we should be wary of, and that name was Victor. Therefore, anyone or anything with the name Victor, stay the fuck away.
That's true. That's true.
So I was immediately distrustful, and I was right to be distrustful. But yeah.
Speaking of that other ship, and sort of getting back to what we thought the Separatists, when we meet that second group, I guess, not the singular Kruger, but the whole group of Separatists that board the ship. One of my biggest takeaways, and this is one of the only real political, I guess, aspects of the story, is pretty much the first thing that the Separatists say when they're on board. Let me try to find it. Give me just a second.
Yeah, while you look, I'm going to go ahead and say welcome to Darth Nightwing Phoenix. Thank you for giving Abster a shout out. We are discussing Sentient by Jeff Lemire.
Oh, is there someone else?
Oh, they just joined the chat. I was just saying hi
I
to
got
chat.
you. Okay, very cool, very cool. Okay, I found it. So as soon as the doors bust open and the port has been breached between Val and Victor as a ship, the first thing that the Separatists say is, "This ship is now a free vessel, and you are free children. Do not be afraid." And I thought that was, I guess, a spectacular parallel. The Separatists and I guess what we see today, that historically, is a lot of the time radicals or imperialist movements, like, say, I like the idea that the Separatists, like in the book, when they're telling the children they're free, have those parallels that imperialist or liberating forces, be it like contraband or uniform, can't really tell anyone that they're free. You can't just say something is free to make it so. And it especially doesn't sound like freedom here when the Separatists that we've seen, from the very little we've learned about what they actually believe in, when you're willing to kill opposing points of view, like Kruger did at the beginning of the story, where she'd say, we're better off just removing the influence that the Earth colony has had on these children so that they can join the Separatists. If you're willing to kill someone to tell them they have freedom, it's not really freedom. And I love that the story puts that there. Is like, you're free, but if you resist, like your new overlords, if you resist this new way of life that we're imposing on you, we're going to make sure you're not free. We're going to make sure you're dead. And I thought that was a spectacular way that Jeff Lemire kind of snuck in a little political view without making the story center around it. Like, at the heart of the story, it's still this deep space thriller, I guess, with children and AI, and this AI learning to be a mother.
I also actually have something to add to that.
Go.
And to go along with the whole the stepping in, be like, you are free sort of thing. In order, and the fucked up pretenses that come with that in order to free, first they must be invaded, is very fucked up, because it's like they said that, and I know it's like free from like a metaphorical point of view, but in order to free someone, you need to scare the shit out of them, overtake what they once knew was something new, aka Victor overtaking all of Valerie's system and them desperately trying to stop it, to the point that Isaac gets hurt trying to do it. That was upsetting. That was very distressing. And they were even going to weld the door shut, and they had to force it open. And it's like, if that's your version of freedom, that's a scary version of freedom.
Yeah, that's definitely something to be considered when people are, I mean, and that's the thing, in their minds they are. That's the scary part.
Yes.
Yep.
Because they don't see it any other way.
Exactly. They're not willing to take compromise. And they think that this Earth colony point of view, or the way they've been taught for so long, is so wrong that they consider it freedom just to be expunged of all that. That's very cool to me. Or not cool, I guess. Like, it's a very cool storytelling element.
It's cool how he told the story.
Exactly. Yeah. Believe me, the Separatists, not cool. I think we're all unanimous in agreement there.
Yeah. And it's like you said before, there's no one who's really morally right, because I know one of the first things that was said when the adults were still alive was they were talking about separatists, and I was like, oh, honestly, they should all just be killed. And it's like, that's a little extreme. And it's one of those, does that make, if you sit there and say a certain person should be killed because they don't agree with you, I know the separatists were doing a lot of bad things, but it's one of those, does it make you any better than them? Especially because we should just kill them all without, and I think they were talking about like just, I might be wrong, but it felt like they were just saying, "Well, let's just kill everyone left on Earth," essentially, or just leave them
So
to die. Anyways,
the way
yeah.
I saw that at the start of the story is they actually kind of do not necessarily the opposite. It's like an opposing force to what the Separatists believe, because you see that the one Earth colonist that's like, they understand like the sympathizers back on Earth looking to hijack ships, they should execute them. We get that little. I guess it might come off as a passing comment, and it can be overlooked. But to me, the fact that one of the other crewmates afterwards is like, Jesus, like really? Afterwards shows that they don't actually like they believe that's an extreme way of looking at it. Like to execute the separatists isn't right. Unlike the separatists, which were willing to do that, they kill at all odds. The Earth colonists don't like it, but they are kind of that opposite point of view where they understand that just because someone has an opposing point of view doesn't necessarily mean they need to die or shouldn't have that point of view.
Right.
Also, you know what? On that exact same page, I want to get your guys' opinion on this.
Yes.
So there's Sanchez who calls out. He's like, "Look, I don't agree with these terrorists," when he's referring to the separatists either. But you have to admit, Earth government hasn't exactly done a great job with Earth. So maybe they have a point. Maybe the colony should be a fresh start. Which obviously shows that you can have discourse here, opposing point of views where you can talk it out. But Kruger says, "Do you believe that, Sanchez? Do you truly believe that?" And Sanchez says, "No, of course not."
It's a test. And he looks at her. He's trying to judge her like, how are you going to react to me if I say yes?
Right.
It's like she's testing him. And she doesn't believe that he really believes that. She's the separatist. She's like, you don't really believe in this stuff. And he's trying to like watch her face and be like, would you hate me if I said yes? Would you actively like pursue combat against me? Or, would you make it very difficult for me to live on this ship? Because that's what he's thinking of, is like, what are we doing right now? Right now, we're living on a ship for a very, very long time together.
Yeah, and this was right about as they were heading into the dead zone, so it was going to be like, if the worst didn't happen, they were going to be stuck together in a very small confined space for a year with no contact with anyone else aside from who's on the ship. So if you start conflict there, that's going to be very awkward.
So here's another curveball for you. On that same page, if you think Sanchez didn't back down from his point of view, where he said, maybe the separatists aren't all wrong, do you think that Kruger would have spared him? Like, would have seen him as an ally?
You know what? After you said that, that also made me wonder, like, if that's why she was asking. If she was asking, because it's like, do I have another ally on this ship? Is there a way for me to go about this in a different sense? Which is why I think on that page, in the final panel, so she's looking somewhat hostile before when she asks, do you truly believe that? But then afterwards she gives him a proper like death glare after he says, no, of course not. Right. So it's almost like her being like, okay, so definitely not, sort of thing.
And the best...
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but the best part about this, and something I want to state for the chat, is we are fully reading into the art right now. There are very few... The words shared between them are literally just, hey, the separatists may not be all bad or may not be wrong. Maybe they have a point. And then, do you really believe that? And then literally a ... a change in facial expression. And no, of course not. Like, this is just 6 panels that they're talking. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4 speech bubbles. There is nothing from a narrator. This is purely to reader interpretation.
I think, and personally, I think that's a fantastic choice. It shows that Jeff Lemire was willing to, if he was really thinking this far ahead, which usually I've been taught authors do, they'll make sure that everything is intentional. If he was thinking this far ahead as to, is this up in the air? Like, is it really up to the reader to interpret this much about everyone's human, I guess, reactions to things? Like, just that stare from Kruger, or was Kruger going to actually kill those kids? It's all up in the air. It's all up to reader interpretation, which is what I love so much, is because this story has so little, like I said, politics. We don't really know what the Earth Society believes or what the Separatists believe differently. And there is one more political point I have to talk about later in the book that also has to do with the art. But this alone, we really don't know the actual viewpoints of the two opposing, what's it called, political forces here. So every single time we have something that can be even infinitesimally political at all, it's all up to the reader to interpret how we read that art and what they actually believe, which I think is an excellent storytelling tool.
Yeah.
Can I also add on that I've just realized, if we're talking about the whole like politics thing, because it almost feels like there's three sides. So hear me out.
Okay.
So there's obviously the separatists, which are the not wanting the new colony to be a thing. There's those remaining on Earth, and then there's the new colony mixed with those heading to the new colony. Because, and this is just a bit of a what I can tell, but from when the adults were talking about the the news they had just gotten from Earth, which they were reading before they go into the dark zone, because it's going to be the last chance they get to read it. And at one point, I forget her name. Was it Alex? The lady who got Val to kill.
Yes, it is Alex. That's Lily's mom, right?
Yeah, Lil's mom. She said the latest estimates put Earth's habitability at just over another 10 years. Someone else says 10. I thought we had at least another 20. And then someone else says, not we, Andrews. We're off-world now, not our problem. So there's almost like an emotional disconnect with some of the crew members, because it's like, instead of being empathetic, because it's like our previous home is borderline unlivable, it's now, well, it's not we anymore, it's not our problem anymore, so we should just, like, am I making sense?
No,
Yeah.
That's actually very intelligent. That's a great way of reading between that's a brilliant point of view, actually. I really like that.
Yeah, I hadn't considered that.
Because you're totally, you're totally right there. They kind of discount Earth.
Yeah.
This is kind of like, hey, we screwed up on Earth, or they did. They screwed up on Earth, so we're leaving this to start anew. So I guess that is kind of like a third faction in a way.
Yeah.
Is trying to understand what these humans, as pioneers on this new world, what they want to do different. Because obviously, if it didn't work on the old world, then they don't consider themselves a part of it. They're like, we're going to do it a new way. But do we want to do it the Separatists' way? So we have the old Earth, the pioneers on the ship, and the Separatists. That's a actually very valid point of view. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And it also adds just an extra bit of awfulness if you have that disconnect, or that because when they get to the new colony, it's well we'd already heard that there were conflicts going on at the new colony, right? That was mentioned.
Well, it's, I do want to build off of what you're saying, that there's this disconnect. I think that is kind of, I hadn't considered it, but like hearing you say that, it feels almost like it's expounded upon later when it's just the kids.
Yeah.
Because like at first you have, Earth, the ship going to the colony, and then the colony itself. And then later you have the Separatists, or better, the unknowns of outer space, the ship going to the colony, and the colony. And it's still this ship against everything. And I think I hadn't considered that, but they set that up a lot earlier than I thought they did.
Yeah. And to also add on that, that doesn't really go away once they get to the settlement.
Mm-hmm.
Because Val ends up offline. Val ends up after helping protect the kids from Victor. Val basically uses up all her energy and is eventually overtaken by the virus Victor put into the computer. And then they got to the colony, and the colony immediately just greeted them with suspicions. So it's immediately there's that disconnect of the colony's just suspicious of them, so it's hard to get close to people when they are naturally suspicious of you. And then through that, they're able to bring Val back, and it's again one of those reading into it, and I don't think the color palette helps within the last few pages. Is that when they brought Val back, it felt almost foreboding. Because on the one hand, it's like, yay, Val's back, happiness. The person who's helped keep them alive and they got close to is alive again. But also, it feels like it recreates the disconnect of there's these people trying to kill us, there's the colony, but then there's still us.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, it's almost, it's bittersweet. Because it almost still feels like it's the ship against everyone else. Except there is no ship. It's just the survivors of the ship against everyone else.
Yeah, that's true. And you could consider Val a survivor, but I think that moment where they switch her back on is that, like, oh yeah, she's a robot. She's an android. She's not a person. And
especially because...
Oh yeah, go.
Especially because what she'd learned through being on the ship was from almost a survival point of view, if you can call it that, through having lost her mission goals. She could not remember them. She completely lost them. And then through that almost becoming human-like. But the Val they get back is, well, a computer.
Mm-hmm.
Robotic, and even her responses are really robotic, because you just get because they would just reintroducing her essentially. So the only thing she says are hello. She repeats Isaac's name, then I am Valerie, and that's it. That's nothing like the Valerie we got to know. It's really short, almost robotic answers, which I think doesn't help with the already sort of foreboding feeling there is about the whole. They've brought back an AI that kept them alive. It almost feels like it's because logically speaking, you'd think, okay, they survived the worst. They've arrived on the colony. They're gonna reintegrate into human society and they'll be okay. But they immediately go back to the AI, and it almost feels a little unhealthy.
Right.
Hmm.
Oh, I can see that.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure. That's definitely put a darker spin on it. I'm not sure I got out of it my second time through. Because it totally makes sense what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's pretty much rebooted here. She has none of that before. How I saw it was it spoke to the volume of, I guess we'll call old Val, before she got completely wiped out by Victor. When they're here and the colony's suspicious, they're like, how did a bunch of children survive alone out there? The children didn't. They survived because of Val. I think that speaks to Val and how much she's changed since it. Basically, what we've got at the beginning with door opening Val is the starting point with the kids at the end of this book. Not necessarily with the safeguards, but the fact that it's kind of restarted. So the fact that Val got that far, where she protected the children, and the children are that attached to her, shows she is capable of that, like, motherly quality. Like, she's capable of caring for these kids. So I took that kind of a little bit more hopeful at the end there, where, like, look how far she's come. Look how much she can accomplish. And she got shut down. Like, that was just a year going through the Dark Zone until she got to the colony. imagine what these kids are capable of now that they trust each other, now that they're pretty much like they're not lashing out at one another anymore. And they've put their trust in Val over this year time span. Imagine what it can do now. So I took it as a more hopeful, I guess, kind of point of view, but I can definitely see why you think that the obsession with the AI is unhealthy. I just think since we've been proven in the story that this AI is different from what we know, like currently in our society today in 2023, because this AI is capable of so much more. It's capable of this emotion, of caring for this children, for being selfless and being able to make that ultimate sacrifice. To be able to say, hey, I'm going to basically self-destruct myself, but I just want to make sure you children are A-okay. I think it's kind of a more hopeful AI kind of thing at the end here. That's just my interpretation, though. You're obviously totally free to your opinions, all of you.
And vice versa to you too, because I do also
Mhm.
understand completely how you've got
Okay.
that point of view.
Gotcha. Very good. Very good.
So I did get a little bit of a different interpretation from this. So we have
Look at that. We've
Oh.
got a third one. There
before
we
we
go.
say anything, Saradaman does have something in the chat. He says, I ended up being too busy this month to even start reading. I won't be tuning in to avoid spoil because I do want to read it. Please have fun. Also, Abs, why are you still awake?
I'm not awake. I'm a figment of your imagination.
Exactly.
I'm not awake. You're the one who's asleep. Ooh. I'll go to bed in a minute.
You're fine.
I
We're
thought it-
almost done.
I got an energy burst. I'm on the verge of just bouncing off the fucking walls.
I would like to say that my interpretation of this ending, it almost felt like it came full circle for me.
Sure.
Because I didn't really see it so much as being, also, Saradaman, thank you for resubscribing. We appreciate you. I didn't see it so much as them returning to the AI in like an unhealthy way. It felt to me like, so there's this thing that happens when people experience grief together and they go through a very harrowing event together, and then like sometimes all you have to talk about is that.
Mhm.
And so having that other person to heal with is really important. And so I saw this sudden, like this blossoming of a friendship where for me, this was hopeful in the fact that they were not only probably more intelligent than most of the children on this colony because of what they had to grow up for all of a sudden. But they also had somebody that they could definitively rely on no matter what in their friendship. And so them coming back full circle and teaching Val how to be Val again, or not Val, they're teaching
No, you were right. It is Val.
Yeah.
Valerie. Yeah, they're teaching Valerie. They're like, Valerie, you are Valerie, and
Mhm.
we're gonna teach you how to be Valerie again. And to me, if I were to humanize Valerie a little bit, I would say it's almost like their mother was in a horrific accident and they are visiting her in the hospital and she's looking at them and she doesn't recognize them and they're reintroducing themselves. And there's just this absolute joy in the children's face of, oh my God, yes, we still have our mother.
Right.
You know, and so for me there was kind of this moment of like hope through growth and healing that in them sitting down and rebuilding Valerie.
Yeah, I would 100% actually that's a fantastic way of looking at it. It is like a kind of like a full circle in that way where or almost like reversed roles where Val was learning to teach the kids, and now these kids are gonna have to learn to teach Val. But either way, they've got each other, and that's what's important.
Right.
As long as they stick together, and they're not like half the story was the kids making scapegoat out of Isaac, or lashing out, or still what's it called? Sad about their
Blaming.
parents. The fact
Yeah.
that they kind of flipped that experience on its head and made it more of a bonding moment where they can get stronger together through all these struggles. It's definitely a hopeful kind of thing. So yes, I 100% agree. That's a great way of looking at it too.
That being said, I can 100% see where Abs is coming from.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh,
Like,
totally.
I
I would
feel like I was just like shutting that out of my brain because I really didn't want this story to end on a sour note, like we're kind
That's
of a
fair.
creepy.
I do not blame you. I
Yeah,
do not blame you.
again, that just speaks to why it's so cool that everyone can see the story in different ways, even the ending, because it's all more into that art interpretation, the very subtle, I guess, open-ended kind of dialogue.
have a good
Speaks
evening,
so much
Grant.
more
Thank
than
you for
heavily-
joining us.
Oh yeah. Take care. Take care.
Hi, Grant.
We hope you read the book.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic book.
Okay.
But yeah, because it's more open-ended like that, little caveats, little dialogue bubbles can speak so much more that we can interpret it through all these different ways.
Oh, Grant, thank you for the gift sub.
I was actually also going to say I adore that. Even though we aren't agreeing on how we've seen it, I just love the fact that we've all seen it in different ways, that we've read
Mhm.
it into it in different ways, and I just think that's brilliant. But I will be honest, I would have seen it in a bit more of a hopeful light, personally. If because it's the in a lot of scenes the palette is actually quite warm. It's just the fact that in the last few frames it goes really cold, I think, is what because it is the only colors are like white, grey, blue, and black, with the red of the reddy pinky color of the colony, and I think that kind of pushes the bittersweet end in my head personally. Like again, it's one of those I 100% understand where you both are coming from for both of your readings. It's just the color palette. I think if the color palette was different, I would read into it differently.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like
Gotcha.
that's played massively on it.
See, when I was reading that, and I understand where you're coming from, I took that blue light because it's most. I was focusing more on the light, the color itself that it's giving, because we've learned to see Val as the source of good. I saw that blue light kind of resonating from the room as that like safety, because Val has always represented that safety or hope. Whereas if it was like a purple hue, like Victor, that would have been where I would have been a little
That's
more
fair.
creeped out. So I think that the fact that it was blue, and this is like I said, it's totally up to interpretation. That's a great way of looking at it. If because it is kind of a colder palette, I can see what you're talking about. Blue is a very cold color, and because it's different from that pink warmy outside, you can totally see it that way. I just was focusing more on the light itself and what I thought that blue color had. We'd learned to see it as, and even I guess that like I said, there's different ways of looking at it. For me, that blue through the story, even with the title being sentient and blue, I thought was a fantastic way of showing us not just the essence of Val, but that theme of safety, of learning together, of bonding. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think it also speaks to how we as individuals might have experienced grief in our lives.
Sure.
Or something traumatic. I think that it kind of can reflect on how you read this. And I think that's important to acknowledge that because this is so much reliant on art interpretation, it could be really easy for your own personal experiences and grief and you know how you recover from that, also how that can help or hinder, you know, whatever you read in this book.
Sure.
With that, I do want to transition into closing thoughts. I'm going to pose the question of Did you like the book and the writing style and the art? If you did, like, what would be your pitch for somebody that's never read this? If you didn't, why would you dissuade somebody from reading this?
Can I add one more thing before we get to that question?
Oh yeah, of course, of
It'll
course.
be my last major point of the story that can be easily overlooked, but I thought that it was how we talk about art, and it's the last political thing that I said I was going to get back to later.
Uh-huh.
It's very subtle, but did anyone notice how diverse the characters are in this story? I
Yeah.
thought this was a fantastic way of, I guess, speaking on our current society. So the fact that everyone in the story is diverse. We have Asians, we have white people, we have black people, and this, even the opposing forces. The separatists, the main lady seems to be Indian. She has a bindi on her forehead. The fact that, regardless of gender or race, all these people have different ideologies. It's interesting how it might speak on the fact that in today's society, like there's a lot of people that tend to overestimate. Like it shouldn't be such a politicized topic to let people be their race, to see people as equal, or to see people of different genders as equal. In this story, it's happened, and we've already overcome that problem in society. I think that the book, because it has done that, where race or gender is not really, it's not a political thing anymore. It's just you are a race or you are a gender.
Well,
This
and
fantastic way of. Oh, go ahead.
I do want to kind of, I'm sorry, I do want to interrupt a little bit and say
Sure.
that I don't think we even get a chance to talk about that in this story. I don't think there was
Right.
even room, like, and I they just don't, they're like, this isn't important, and it's just not important, which is kind of, I agree with you. I don't think that's how it I think it's just how it should be.
Exactly. It shouldn't be a politicized issue. The fact that it is today, we're still talking about, should gay people have rights? Should transgenders have rights? The fact that we've had ingrained our society a place where certain races aren't allowed to advance as far as different ones, it shows that we should be able to overcome this. Like, it shouldn't be like, why are people still voting against letting people be who they are? Why are people still the fact that this society, although it has its own problems on its own, the fact that race or gender isn't one of those problems is, I think, a great storytelling element to me. And it's like you said, it's subtle. The story doesn't really mention it, but because he's allowed Gabriel to breathe that kind of idea through his art, it's like you can interpret it that way. It's kind of like a subtle nod at what maybe today's society is doing wrong.
Yeah, it could be kind of like a Star Trek, hey, hope for the future kind of situation, you know?
Yes. I 100% agree. Yes, it's very ahead of its time.
Yeah. Oh, so we'll wrap back up to final
Yes.
thoughts.
Back to your question.
Yeah, final thoughts. What'd you like? Would you recommend this? Why or why not? Or did you like it? Would you recommend this?
Did you want me to start again?
Let's get Abs to start, because I know it's super duper late for her.
Oh yeah.
It's
You go ahead.
3 a.m. Yay!
We did a lot better on time on this one, I do want to say, than the last
Oh, yeah.
one.
Because I wasn't rambling on and on. Thanks a lot for that.
I adored this. I loved how the artwork just fit the story really fucking well. I don't even know how to explain it. Just automatically, the artwork just fits the story. The story is extremely interesting. The characters are compelling. There's some really interesting undertones you can really read into. And I will say I love it even more after having this discussion, because I've just realized how much you can read into it in different ways, and it's like, that's a good fucking story. If you can have several people come in being like, so this is what I thought, and you all have differing ways of reading it that do sort of align in some ways, it's like neat. to convince someone to read it. Space horror, but with emotion.
Okay. So space horror with some heart.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm very tired. I have 3 minutes till it's
That's
3
You're
okay.
totally great.
No.
I was meant to be an hour. No, I was meant to be in bed like 2 hours ago.
Well, if you do want to log off now, I would totally understand. But I really, really appreciate you being here, Abs. You have brought,
Absolutely.
honestly, you brought a really cool and very different perspective that a lot of us that I know I hadn't considered, and I'm pretty sure that Joey here
Not
hadn't
at all.
considered
Oh,
either.
no, not at all. Yeah.
I might scoot off because I'm very tired. But
Okay.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I'm
do
very
that.
glad I was able to drop in because I wasn't thinking I could, and I'm glad I did because I was really looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're both wonderful. Everyone's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go the fuck to sleep.
Go
Thank
sleep.
you. Thank you. You have a
Good
good
night,
night.
Abs.
Thank you for hosting this. Good night. Bye.
Bye.
Remember, you guys can follow Abs on Twitch here. She was shouted out earlier in the chat, but I'm going to go ahead and do it again. While Joey Fan here makes his final comments. Did you enjoy this book? Why or why not? Would you recommend it?
Oh, you already know I did. Like, this is 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 story. I'm trying to think of anything I'd have wrong with this. But, honestly, look, to convince people to read this, at the very least, if you just read this through without thinking too hard about the art or anything, at base, you have a fantastic deep space kind of dismal horror story focused around children, and we're wondering always on the edge of our seat, are these kids going to make it to this colony safe? And at its deepest is what you have here. This, I don't know how long it's been, 1 hour, 2 hour long conversation on the art, the little intricacies, the little political elements in it, everything about it. It's just a masterclass of writing and art that shows that Jeff Lemire and Gabriel Walta are ahead of their time.
I think that I agree with that wholeheartedly. Do you have a whole sales pitch? Do you have like a little 1 or 2 sentences that you'd be like, yeah, read this? I
think that I kind of felt that was it. Okay. Hey, if you're looking for a story at base, this is like at the very least that you can get out of this is a deep space horror book around children, and at most you're going to get so much more out of this. So 10 out of 10 must recommend.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Joey Fan. We just have a couple more minutes before an advertisement breaks in, so I'm gonna save my final thoughts. I do want to say, hey, make sure that you check out next month's book. We're going to be reading Motor Girl by Terry Moore, and again, you can order that from Collected Comics and Games. Just make sure to mention that you're part of the comic book club, and we'll shoot you a 10% off. Awesome. Well, I guess the ad starts in 3 minutes. That took way less time. I love this book. One of the reasons I chose it is because I needed a book last minute, and this is one of my favorites. So I'm really excited that I got to share that with you guys. I hope that we've convinced some people in chat this is worth reading. If you do end up checking it out or are curious about it, let me know. Our comic book club has a bunch of links that we share. If you want to join the comic book club, let me know. It's a very small group right now. We do keep it fairly private, but we would love to have you. Just reach out to me on the Discord. Let me know you're interested.
And please do. I mean, like, look how much conversation we got out of just 3 people's opinions tonight. Imagine if we could get more.
Yeah.
How much we could delve into these books if more people could join up.
And you can always jump in on the chat. Again, this is our first live show. So we hope to see you next month. I'll announce when our meeting will be. It'll probably be on the first Saturday of November that we discuss Motor Girl. because that seems to be the time that works best for our dear host Android Usagi. And we'll announce the time and date then. Make sure you guys read more comics, and I hope this has inspired you. Joey, thank you again for joining us. Abster, I know you're not here,
Absolutely.
but thank you. And Grant, thank you. I really hope that we convinced you all to read more comics. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.